All right, let's dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mhm.
This book has been, pretty popular, I think for a reason. I think a lot of people are kind of looking for advice that goes a little bit deeper than just, budgeting and clipping coupons. So hopefully Robert Kiyosaki can give us some of that.
Yeah, and I think part of the appeal of this book is that it's rooted in Kiyosaki's own experiences. She actually grew up with two dads, his biological father, who he calls the poor dad, and then his best friend's father, who he refers to as the rich dad. And they had these very contrasting views about money, which kind of like forced him to really question everything he thought he knew about, finances and wealth.
That's super interesting. It's almost like we have a front row seat to a financial tug of war. So
Yeah.
what were some of those contrasting views?
Well, his poor dad had this very traditional belief, that the love of money is the root of all evil. And, that's kind of how, you know, we're raised to think about money.
Right.
Work hard, get a good job, be responsible. But his rich dad actually had, completely the opposite view. He was like, no, no, no. The lack of money is the root of all evil. Meaning that, like, when you don't have enough money, that's when all these other problems kind of spiral out of control.
Wow, that's quite the statement. I bet that difference in mindset really shaped how Kiyosaki, navigated his own financial journey.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is he doesn't necessarily say one dad is right or wrong, but he makes you, the reader, actually confront your own beliefs about money. It's almost like he's saying, hey, I had to go through this process of figuring this out myself, and now, you can too.
So it's not about blindly following one dad's philosophy over the other,
Yeah.
but more like using their contrasting views as a springboard to your own, financial journey.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, where things start to get really interesting. Kiyosaki, he argues that, traditional education actually kind of fails to teach us about money.
That's something I think a lot of people can relate to. We spend years learning algebra and history, which is all important, but how to actually manage your money, that's often, completely left out.
Exactly. And, his educated dad, the poor dad, he actually like really pushed Kiyosaki to get good grades and go to college and, land a secure job. But his rich dad had this completely different focus. He was more about, teaching him how to build businesses and create assets that would, generate wealth.
It's about thinking outside of that, traditional 9 to 5 box and really taking control of your financial destiny.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, Kiyosaki tells this really fascinating story about working for Mike's dad, the rich dad, for only 10 cents an hour.
10 cents an hour. Wow. I gotta say, that sounds kind of harsh. Was the rich dad like trying to exploit them?
No, not at all. This was actually like a really deliberate lesson, you
Yeah.
know? Kiyosaki and his friend Mike, they wanted to, hang out with their wealthier peers, buy all the cool stuff. But the rich dad, he really wanted to show them, like, the trap of working just for money, especially when you're driven by fear and that, like, desire for instant gratification.
So it was really about teaching them the value of delayed gratification and the importance of building something that would, work for them in the long run.
You got it. And this ties in directly with one of the book's core principles, which is the difference between assets and liabilities. This is where Rich Dad, Poor Dad really kind of like, gets down to the nitty gritty.
Let's break it down. Everyone always talks about assets and liabilities, but I got to say, I think a lot of people are still kind of like fuzzy on what those terms actually mean in practice.
Well, the cool thing is Kiyosaki keeps it simple. He actually uses straightforward diagrams to define an asset as anything that puts money in your pocket and a liability as anything that takes money out of your pocket. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that sounds pretty simple, but in real life, it's sometimes a little bit murky. Like, for example, a house. Everyone says a house is an asset.
Ah, that's the classic example. And Kiyosaki actually challenges that assumption. He says that a house is only an asset if it's, generating income for you. If you're shelling out tons of cash each month on the mortgage, repairs, property taxes, all that stuff, then it's actually acting more like a liability.
So it's not about what you own, but it's how that ownership impacts your cash flow.
Exactly. And this then kind of leads to another one of Kiyosaki's big ideas, which is the concept of the rat race. So he says that, like so many people, they get stuck in this cycle of working harder, earning more money, paying more in taxes, and then spending more.
So even if you're climbing the corporate ladder, getting raises, getting promotions, you might still be on that hamster wheel.
Right. It's about recognizing that the traditional path doesn't necessarily equal financial freedom. It's like you're trapped, right? And this is where the whole idea of financial intelligence comes in. It's not just about working hard. It's about understanding how money works, right?
Mhm.
And making it work for you.
So it's like working smarter, not just harder, when it comes to your money.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki, he often compares it to like building muscle. You got to exercise your financial intelligence if you want to grow your wealth.
And he uses that phrase like minding your own business. What exactly does he mean by that?
Yeah, it's not always about like starting a traditional business, although he does advocate for that too.
Hmm.
It's more about building that asset column that we talked about, that generates income, whether it's through investments or real estate or even side hustles.
So it's kind of like having those multiple streams of income, not just relying solely on that 9 to 5 paycheck.
Yeah, you got it. And it's about creating a system where your money is working for you, even when you're like, sleeping.
That sounds pretty amazing, but also a little intimidating if I'm being honest. Now, Kiyosaki, he also talks a lot about like overcoming fear and laziness when it comes to money. Um, how does he suggest we actually do that?
Well, he uses this really powerful analogy of a 98-pound weakling. He says just like you need to hit the gym, lift weights to build physical strength, you got to exercise your money muscles, so to speak, if you want to build, real financial strength.
So how do we work out our financial intelligence then?
Well, he kind of breaks it down into like four key components, accounting, investing, understanding markets, and then the law.
Okay, so let's unpack those a little bit. Accounting seems pretty straightforward, right? It's about like understanding your income and expenses.
Yeah, yeah, but it actually goes like a lot deeper than that. It's
Okay.
about being able to analyze, financial statements and make like informed decisions based on actual numbers, not just, emotions or like gut feelings.
So it's really about being financially literate, not just relying on somebody else to, manage your money for you. Now, what about investing? I think that's where things can start to feel a little bit more complicated for a lot of people.
Yeah, and Kiyosaki, he encourages you to just start small, learn as you go. And he emphasizes the importance of like finding mentors and learning from their experiences.
Like his rich dad, who taught him so much about investing in, real estate and businesses.
Exactly. And then when it comes to understanding markets, Kiyosaki, he really stresses the need to be aware of like, economic trends and to be able to spot opportunity.
So it's about being a savvy investor, not just,
Yes.
throwing money at like whatever's trendy or popular in the moment.
Right, right. And then finally there's the law. Kisaki emphasizes like, understanding the legal aspects of, investing in business. Things like how to use corporations to minimize taxes and protect your assets.
That's really interesting. It sounds like he's encouraging us to really be, proactive, like understand the rules of the game and then use them to our advantage.
Absolutely. Kiyosaki, he really believes that knowledge is power and that, financial intelligence is really the key to like unlocking a whole world of possibilities.
But I think like all this talk about financial intelligence and, building assets, it can feel pretty overwhelming, especially if you're like just starting out.
Yeah.
So where do you even begin?
Well, Kiyosaki, he really emphasizes, just taking action. Even if it's just small steps. He encourages you to attend seminars, read books, and make lots of offers when you're investing.
He also says to find, bargains in all markets, think big, and learn from history.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. He believes that failure is actually part of the process, and it's how you handle, setbacks that really matters.
Like Colonel Sanders, who faced over 1,000 rejections before finally, finding success with KFC.
Exactly. Kiyosaki, he says to learn from your mistakes and use them as fuel to kind of move forward. And he also emphasizes the importance of finding mentors, people who have actually achieved what you aspire to.
So it's about like, surrounding yourself with people who can support you and guide you along that, financial journey.
Yes, and remember, Kiyosaki, he's also a big believer in giving back, right? He encourages you to share your knowledge and your resources with others and like, create a ripple effect of positive change.
That's a great reminder that, financial success isn't just about accumulating wealth for yourself. It's also about like, making a difference in the world.
Right, right. And finally, Kiyosaki encourages you to be bold and like overcome that fear of, losing money.
He says, even the rich, they experience losses, but it's how you handle them that really, defines you.
He tells this great story about Texans in the Alamo where defeat actually became like a rallying cry for future victory.
So it's about, learning from your failures and using them to fuel your future successes.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki, he emphasizes the need to like really overcome laziness, which he actually sees as a form of fear. He says that busy people are often the laziest, because they're actually afraid to like confront their financial situation.
So staying busy is just a way of avoiding, like, dealing with your money problems.
Right. And he contrasts this with the discipline of like paying yourself first, right? Even if it means, finding creative ways to generate more income.
He really challenges that conventional wisdom of, work hard, earn more, and then spend more.
He encourages you to break free from that rat race that we talked about
Right.
and create a life where you actually have control over your time and your money.
So it's not just about, getting rich. It's about, like, achieving real financial freedom and living life on your own terms.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Rich Dad Poor Dad is really all about, right? It's about empowering you to take control of your financial destiny and create, the life that you truly want.
It seems like Kiyosaki's, like, whole approach is less about, specific financial strategies and more about just kind of, like, shifting your mindset when it comes to money.
Absolutely. He challenges a lot of those like, traditional ideas. Like for instance, he believes that like playing it safe with your investments, that can actually be riskier in the long run.
Oh, interesting. Most people are taught to, avoid risk,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to their, hard-earned money.
Right, exactly. But Kiyosaki, he argues that like, those secure investments, they often have such low returns that they barely keep up with inflation. You're essentially, losing purchasing power over time.
So it's about finding that balance between, like, protecting your money, but also, allowing it to grow.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki, he's all about like, calculated risks,
Huh?
the kind that can lead to, significant rewards as long as you're doing your homework and you're, being smart about it.
Right, right. But I imagine that takes a lot of, confidence and knowledge. He also talks about, like, the danger of arrogance, right?
Yeah, yeah. He believes that arrogance actually leads to ignorance because, it makes you like close off to new ideas. So he stresses the importance of staying humble, always, learning and being open to different perspectives.
So even if you think you have it all figured out, there's always more to learn. I really like that.
It reminds me of something Kiyosaki said about like the difference between your profession and your business. People might say, "Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer," but do they actually own the hospital or the law firm? Probably not.
Right. So it's about taking ownership of your, financial future, not just relying on a job for, like, security.
It all goes back to building that asset column, right? The one that's generating income, whether you're, clocking in at your job or not.
This has been such a great deep dive. So if we had to, like, boil down Kiyosaki's message to one key takeaway, what would it be?
I think it's about empowering yourself. Empowering yourself to create the life you want, through financial intelligence and a willingness to kind of challenge that conventional thinking.
It's not about, like, getting rich quick. It's about building that, solid foundation for, like, long-term wealth and freedom.
Absolutely. And remember, it all starts with taking action, Like Kiyosaki says, don't wait for the perfect opportunity, create it.
So what is one small step that you, our listener, can take today, right now, to start building your own asset column or just, improving your financial knowledge?
Yeah.
Maybe pick up a book on investing, attend a financial seminar, or even just, start tracking your expenses more closely.
Remember, knowledge is power. And that financial intelligence, it's the key to unlocking so many possibilities. We believe in you.